All right, let's get into our tip of the week. Our tip of the week this week is managing the poly count for our trees and plants. Our trees and plants can rack up polygons quickly. So a polygon is, if we think back to elementary and middle school math, it's any shape that has more than 3 sides to it, or 3 or more sides to it, okay? So as we start connecting our shapes together, they start filling up. So those are where our surfaces come in, right? And then we start connecting these polygons together. And that's how we get our 3D look. But from one point to the next of all of these connected polygons is a calculation that Archicad is making. Okay, so when we talk about the poly count of something, how many polygons are together here that are being calculated? So when we think about the detail level of trees and leaves, and just this tree right here, it'd be interesting to know how many polygons are just in that one tree. Okay, the more polygons there are, the more accurate and smooth the model is going to be. But that also increases our complexity and our calculation times. So if we have a huge project, let's say we're doing a massive historical hotel that we're renovating, the poly count on that can rise quickly, and then the load time between screens of Archicad is going to increase because it has to do those calculations each time you're reloading the project. And then if we ever wanted to do a realistic rendering of that, it's going to take even more time. This is something we need to be especially mindful of when we are downloading objects from a third-party source. Okay, 3D Warehouse is notorious for this. Great objects, they look phenomenal sometimes, but then look at that poly count. We can see that poly count before we ever bring it into Archicad. Okay, it'll tell us there within the info of that object. 42,000 polygons for a single tree is a lot. And then how many times are you going to place this tree? So you can see how quickly that number is going to grow. So Turbo Squid, it does allow you to filter based on how many polygons you want to use. They have a low poly count option here. Okay, so then you can change the level of detail, but know that that comes with a different poly count. So we have this tree here. It's fairly cheap, $17.50, right? It has a poly count of, I need to get closer into my screen, 452,000 polygons for this tree right here. Okay, we jump up to a higher level of detailed tree, and this tree here, $39, has a poly count of 974,000 polygons for this one tree. And then how many times are you reusing that tree time after time within the project? And that's where you see those poly counts skyrocket. A good way to manage that is to download the poly counting tool from Archicad. This is within the Archicad goodies package. It is a free download. This isn't an additional purchase. If you have Archicad downloaded on your computer, you can get this regardless of your Archicad version. This is available to you. So you can choose to download the entire goodies package. Great, a lot of great little things in here. Or you can choose to just download the poly count tool. Okay, from there, we would go up to, I believe it's up in options, and we go to poly count. That is going to pop up this window right here. Okay, we can see the total number of polygons within the project, and then we can also break it down by tree or by object, let's say. So just this one tree, nope, this tree is used 3 times within the project for a total of, let's see, 109,886. It was reduced by almost 78% using our model view options to drop down the level of detail that we're seeing certain objects in. And when let me back up just for a second. So when I'm saying in that default level, so within our poly count tool, we can change the default level of detail that's going to be used on all objects universally. Okay, so we can change the default to be detailed, simple, off, or custom. With any of those, that is the default. It still is changed and controlled by our model view options. Okay. I don't want that to play quite yet. Pause it. All right. So ArchVista has created a tool called ModelPort. ModelPort does a lot of different things when it comes to bringing objects and controlling objects within Archicad. When we're talking about the poly count specifically, it's going to help us control the poly count before we ever even bring it into Archicad, right? So we download the tree that we like, whether we pay for it or do it for free. We download that and feel like, okay, we download that and then we bring our tree into Archicad via ModelPort, meaning we go up to our Windows menu, and then in Windows we open up ModelPort, and then from ModelPort we say open new object, and then we find that object that we downloaded and purchased, and we bring it into ModelPort. It is not even in the embedded library of Archicad yet, and we get this bar that shows us the poly count. Okay, and as we start changing the level of detail, we can reduce polygons. Okay, and look how much ModelPort brought the poly count down, and we didn't lose very much detail of that tree at all. It did that by combining fills and combining lines. Okay, so the power of ModelPort can give you the level of detail that you're looking for and help reduce the number of polygons that are going to come with that level of detail. This is an additional purchased item because it comes from ArchVista. I find it to be a very, very useful tool as we are bringing in these more detailed objects.